I think that what is one of the points that we should look at now, because it has a lot of political momentum, is the issue of the MDGs. The MDGs were created or were adopted in 2010 in order to eradicate extreme poverty and really to improve the life of many people. Now there's only 5 years to go to the term in which the MDGs should be complied with, and we have seen that actually governments have failed. Although if we look at the aggregate numbers, it is true that the number of people living in poverty has decreased. This is mainly due to the situation of China and India. So actually, if we take China, the progress made in China and India out, what we see is the number of people living in poverty in the world has incremented. And now with the crisis, it is quite likely that it's going to, after we have some measures, it's going to increment more. The most progressive estimate consider now that after 2007 until now, more than 160 million people have fallen into poverty. So this is a major global problem. The MDGs are very limited. They don't take into account human rights. So in the 5 years to come, there is 2 things to do in my view. I mean, the government should increase their political will to comply with the MDGs and decrease poverty in the world. And on the other hand, it is important to incorporate a human rights discourse in the MDGs. The truth is that when the Millennium Declaration, that is the framework in which the Millennium Development Goals were adopted, include human rights, but then we lost them in the specific MDGs. So we have to strengthen. Otherwise, we're not going to have sustainable and equitable achievement and progress in the world. I honestly think that we have to change our own consciousness about how we see and address poverty. Those who are better off, we tend to have several prejudices against the poor that are so entrenched in our mind. So often when we have programs, for example, that give cash to those living in poverty, the general reaction is that they don't deserve it, that they're going to drink their money, that they're lazy. So this type of program do not receive a lot of support from the political elites. But actually, simultaneously, what we have seen in the recent decades is what we can call a quiet revolution in development, in which increasingly we have seen more what is called cash transfer programs, direct transfer of cash to families living in poverty in order to allow them to satisfy their basic needs and at the same time be able to have human capacities for their children, so they can escape poverty. There's extensive programs like Bolsa de Familia in Brazil, that is considered like the flagship program that has diminished poverty and inequality in the country, but we have seen those also in India, in Bangladesh. It's really also now in several Sub-Saharan African countries and Asian countries, Southeast Asian countries. So, and the interesting point with this program is that when you give direct cash to families that are incapacitated to overcome poverty, you lift them and you allow them to improve their situation. Unfortunately, because of all this prejudice against the poor, sometimes these programs do not receive the political support that are necessary to expand them and make a real change. So I think that, and this is just one example, but we really need to work on on changing our own mindset about poverty. And as I mentioned before, it's quite interesting that in European countries, the perception of people about poverty is that first they have bad luck, second that they're lazy or lack the political will, third that they do not deserve it. And also we still have a group that consider that poverty is inevitable. And this is quite disconcerting in rich countries, in wealthy countries like European countries, because poverty is not a problem of progress. It is the consequences of political choices and policy measures that might come from the past, but they're affecting a group of people and inhibiting them to go out of poverty. I'm a human rights lawyer. I'm a lawyer from Chile. I started working on issues of poverty since a very early age at the community level, and then I linked this motivation to work with people living in poverty with academic studies. So I study international law. I did my PhD in international human rights law as well, but always working with NGOs that promote economic, social and cultural rights and issues of overcoming poverty or fight against poverty. And in 2008, when the system for special procedures changed and it became an open system, a coalition of NGOs put forward my name, and then I was appointed. So my name was put forward independently, and it was the first time in 2008 when the election of the UN special procedures became a public process in which all CVs and the candidates were made public, and NGOs started putting a lot of pressure also to have certain candidates. Well, I think that, I mean, I'm a lawyer, but I think that unfortunately the world or the international human rights movement, there are too many lawyers and issues like poverty, but also issues of other rights, torture, disappearances, and etc., must be addressed from a multidisciplinary perspective. In a way, I think that, or I hope that the human rights movement, if we can call it that way, will be more open to different disciplines in which lawyers will not dominate. In particular, issue of poverty, development, or torture or disappearances, we need sociologists, we need anthropologists, we need people who have studied public policies, we need doctors to add their own knowledge and their own vision to the movement. To be honest, and quite frankly, I don't know the specific programs of the university, but what I do know, and I think that this is a very good impact of the program, is that within the international organization, I quite often find Italians that have studied here, and it is quite impressive. Just to give an example, just my assistant at the Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights study here, but everywhere you go, when you mention this program, it's of course one of the oldest human rights program in Europe, and it's very well known, and actually the alumni from these programs, you find them in doing the real work. So I think that that is a very good example of the quality of the program.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.